I often say that I was born and raised in South Texas. I was born and raised in Robstown, Texas, but I grew up in San Antonio.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I became an adult here in San Antonio, and all the beautiful things about life I got to experience here.
Hello, and welcome to Nosotros, the podcast about San Antonio politics, history, cultura, y más, brought to you in part by the Gomez Law Firm. My name is Elaine Ayala, and I'm your host. I'm Metro columnist for the San Antonio Express News. My guest today is Isis Romero, the longtime San Antonio television anchor, currently anchoring the 6 and 10 o'clock news on KENS 5. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, Elaine.
So nice to have you here. We've been involved in several projects for a real long time.
Yes, known each other for many years, so thank you for the invitation.
Yes, and so I guess I want to start with your leadership in the journalism community, which might have been most evident, not only with your involvement in the San Antonio Association of Hispanic Journalism, but an audit that was done several years ago about television anchors.
Yes.
Tell me what your involvement was.
I helped lead that audit. Me, along with Sylvia Froster-Frau, as you know, who worked here at the Express News at the time, who's now at the Washington Post.
And a Pulitzer Prize winner.
Yes. So happy for her. Just congratulations to Sylvia. But yes, the two of us spearheaded that project, looking at diversity in San Antonio newsrooms. And what we found was there was a lack of representation, especially among the Latino community, which, as we know, is the majority community here in San Antonio. And that's what it really looked at. All these years later, has anything changed? I guess it depends on where you are and who you ask. I know that there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of representation, both just as a market in San Antonio and then also as an industry. I will be so happy when I see the day where it's, instead of seeing ABC News with David Muir, we're seeing it ABC News with David Muriel, and he rolls his R's, And so I think nationally and across the country, I would love to see more diversity in the journalism community at large. But this particular audit looked at San Antonio specifically.
And the news was not good.
Right.
And you were then at KSAT.
At the time.
At the time. And you were there a total of 11 years, a very long time in the major seat. And as I recall, you were doing documentaries and special reports. What happened?
In terms of my departure, here's what I can say about, my time at KSAT. I really enjoyed working in that newsroom. I really enjoyed all the successes that we enjoyed as a news station. Ultimately, it wasn't my decision, and, I just have to respect that and leave it at that. I think looking back, all these years later, it's been 3 years since my departure there, and looking at the place where I am today, even though that time, that period of being without a job and not being a part of the industry was difficult, I look back and I'm so grateful that I now find myself at KENS 5 and am be able to continue my career. My approach to it has been trying to move forward in a positive way. I don't hold any ill feelings about what happened, or I have a lot of friends that are still there that I
You have a lot of friends that are no longer there either.
Yes, and that I talk to and respect, and I'm just grateful for my time that I spent there and was able to grow as a journalist, and am immensely grateful to the leadership at KENS for bringing me on board. It's very difficult once you leave one station to find that same job at another. It is immensely difficult because timing and everything has to work out. And so I'm so grateful to the leadership at KENS 5 for bringing me on board, and I'm in an incredibly happy place right now in terms of my career. I just love working at KENS 5 so much. I've got incredible colleagues. I love our approach to diversity and some of the things that, mean a lot to me. And so, looking back all these years later, I'm just grateful for the experience.
And now you're sitting at a desk with that adorable co-anchor, Henry Ramos, who is just a delight.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
So first of all, Henry and I are not only the only two Latinos doing the evening news together in San Antonio. We're the only two Tejanos. He is from the Lubbock area. I'm from South Texas. And so I just, first of all, think that is so special to have that. And then we've got an incredibly beautiful relationship. He sits next to me at work. Our cubicles are side by side. So I literally am spending 8 hours of my day next to Henry, and we just have so much fun. He's so talented. He's so smart. He just has this heart of gold, and he really, really gives his all in terms of the stories he covers, in terms of the work that he puts into our newscast at 10. And so I'm really blessed to be able to anchor next to him.
And so what are your ratings telling you?
All I can say about the ratings, I am not the research director, so I don't have access to the numbers and all of that, but I can tell you that we are experiencing growth, which is an exciting time. My bosses are happy, so then I'm happy. So,
Because when you were as I recall, when you were at KSAT, you were the top station at the time.
Yeah, and different stations use different metrics. I'm just not privy to a lot of that information, but I can get it to you if you want. Yeah.
20 years in the business.
Yes.
What have you seen that's that you would call dramatic change, or change for the better, maybe change for the worse?
Yeah, so it's changed so much in the 20 years that I've been in. I entered in just before 2004, and back then there was no social media. There was, we were still you couldn't even get your email on your phone back then. Everything was manual, tape-to-tape editing and not digital editing. So I have seen a dramatic change in terms of our approach to news, the way newsrooms, broadcast newsrooms, approach news, and then execute the news. And then I've seen a change in terms of the responsibilities of each journalist in the newsroom. When I entered as a reporter in 2003, 2004, I'd go out with my photographer. We'd shoot a story, you put it together for broadcast, and then you're done. Today, the demands and the responsibility on a modern newsroom and a modern journalist are quite different. Not only are you a lot of times going out by yourself, you're a cameraman, you're a reporter, and you're an editor, editing your piece together for broadcast. Then you're switching gears and doing a written piece for the website. Then you're doing your social media and all of the things that come with that. The demands today look a lot different than when I entered all those years ago. And I think for that reason, across the board, we are seeing less and less young journalists entering newsrooms. Mm-hmm. The pay has gone down across the board, just generally speaking. Even though when I entered, it wasn't great. I think I was making in my first job $7.75 an hour, which
was my goodness,
minimum wage at the time. But there were opportunities for growth from that. For the most part, pays have come down a little bit from what I'm hearing across the country, and for that reason, people are deciding to go into different professions. You may have a communications degree, but instead of going into a newsroom, maybe you're going into PR or maybe you're going into marketing. And so you're seeing that, first of all, just less people entering the business. You're also seeing turnover. It is an incredibly demanding job because it's 24/7, 365 days a year, holidays y todo, everything.
Yes.
And so for those reasons, I think burnout exists to a higher degree than most industries. And you see a lot of turnover, a lot of people leaving their professions to do PR, other work, use that skill set that you've learned in journalism to move on and try and tackle, other things. And so it's an
have a
interesting
life.
time. And it's hard to find balance, right? As a journalist, it's hard, especially with the shift that I work and being a mom, it's very difficult to find balance. But it's an interesting time in the industry right now. I think journalists are needed now more than ever. I'm working at UIW, as you know, as a professor there in the fall, teaching broadcast journalism and trying to, encourage and inspire the next generation of journalists to join the industry because we need them.
Yes, especially as really democracy is on the line in this coming election. All of the things you said resonate in our newsroom too.
Yes.
That cycle, that added responsibility, added duties, because a lot of the people that were there to do some of that are gone. So you're in a station now where your colleague is also your husband.
Yes.
So let's talk about him and let's talk about your family because it is adorable.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so Phil and I don't know if most people know this, but met covering a fire.
And this is Phil Anaya.
Phil Anaya, yes, my husband. We'll be celebrating 10 years of marriage next year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We met at a fire, and
Here in San Antonio?
Here in San Antonio. He was working for KENS at the time, or he still works for KENS, and I was working for KSAT. I was working for the competitor. But, there's something really beautiful, I think, that happens in this market is a lot of times when you're in the field as a reporter, it's not adversarial. You help each other. I think any reporters at any of the stations can attest to this.
Yes.
It's not cutthroat. If you see another reporter that needs help or needs some information, you help them. That had been my experience in the field, and that was kind of how it started. We were out covering a fire, and then the next day there was another fire, and I just kept running into him in the field, and that's how really a friendship blossomed at first. And so it was quite a while before we began dating. But, 10 years later, here we are with 3 children and 3 beautiful boys and colleagues as well.
And tell us the name of your boys.
So Elijah's my oldest. He'll be 10 in August. I cannot believe that 10 years ago I was pregnant with him. The time just flew by. And then Philip is my 8-year-old, and my youngest is Noel. He's my Christmas baby. So
the last time I wrote about you was a story that Father David Garcia called me about. And he was as a religion writer, he was a primary source of mine. And he says, I think you need to do a story on Isis Romero. She's experiencing a very profound, I think he used the word conversion.
Yes, yeah.
And so take us back to when that happened and how it happened. What influenced you?
Yeah, so I grew up in a Baptist church, a Spanish-speaking church in Robstown, Texas, which is where I'm from, named Segunda Iglesia Bautista. I grew up in that church. And my pastor at the time is now here, a pastor here in San Antonio. And so I had an opportunity to visit with him as I was considering converting to Catholicism. My husband comes from a Catholic family, a devout Catholic family who doesn't miss a mass on Sundays.
And they're not from here.
They're New Mexico.
New Mexico.
Las Cruces, New Mexico. And so marrying a Catholic, and then once I understood that we needed to be married in the church in order for him to receive communion and how important that was for him, it was just like a light switch. It was something I said, I need to explore. I need to see if raising our family in a Catholic church is what God is telling me to do, or is what is meant for our family. And so I have a relationship with Father David through the media, and he encouraged me to come visit Mission Concepcion and encouraged me to get involved with the RCIA at the time, which is their program for adults.
RCIA.
Rite of initiation for Christian Adults is what it stands for.
So it's basically catechism for adults.
Yes. And so I went to weekly classes for a year to learn about the Catholic faith.
A whole year?
A whole year.
Oh my God.
Yeah, to learn about the Catholic
That's a
faith,
commitment.
all the rituals, everything that that the religion stands for and believes. And so through the course of that year, I really felt that being Catholic and following my husband's lead and raising our family Catholic is really what God was telling me to do at the time. And I still believe that to this day. Two of our boys just celebrated their first Holy Communions. And so we are now parishioners at another parish. We no longer go to Mission Concepcion because it's a little bit of a drive, but we still visit from time to time. But yeah, it was a wonderful experience. I'm so grateful for it. And we'll be starting Noel, my youngest, in his catechism classes next year.
Wow. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
That is quite a step.
Yes.
So how did you get to your very first job in journalism?
So even though I say I have 20 years in journalism, it's actually longer than that because I did behind the scenes stuff. I did with like audio operator and
some of the dirty work.
yes.
It's not the glamorous stuff.
Yeah.
You're so glamorous.
Thank you. Yeah.
So-
That's not the reason I got into journalism. Yes.
Oh, you didn't get in for the glamour?
No,
I got in for the glamour.
I got into journalism because I loved to write. I loved writing. My passion for writing really began in the second grade with my second grade teacher, Mrs. Longoria. She would encourage us to write these little essays and create these stories. And I just remember having so much fun and being really giddy when I would come home and writing these stories and just wanting to initially pursue a career in writing. And then in high school, I started taking on some leadership positions in my school as student council president.
Of course you were.
Drum major.
Of course you were.
I was used to speaking and being in front of a crowd.
Yeah.
So if you marry those two things, the writing and being in front of a crowd, I came up with news anchor.
Of course.
Yeah.
And then did you go to UT?
Yes, I went to the University of Texas at Austin. It was the only school I applied to. The day they opened their application process, I was there. There was no computers in my house back then, so I wrote it on a typewriter.
Oh my God, girl.
And I remember even if I would make a mistake, I didn't want to get the white out and backtrack.
Start all over.
So I would start all over, and I wrote my essay via typewriter. And so I remember before Thanksgiving of my senior year in high school, getting the acceptance letter to UT Austin. And
what a dream.
it was set from then on out. Yeah.
And then you ended up at a Corpus Christi station.
Yes. I sent you a couple of photos from my first TV job, which was KZTV in Corpus Christi.
Oh my God.
It was a blast.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, this was my first job where I was making, I think $7.75, if I recall correctly, as a reporter. And then I got promoted to anchor.
Wow, that was fast.
Yes, after 7 months, which was nice. So I was making $21,000 a year.
Wow,
yes,
big time.
Yes, big time. But you know what? It was the experience of a lifetime. I am so grateful to my news director at the time. His name was Kent Harrell, for opening that door for me, because back then in the industry, it was very competitive. It was very difficult to get a job. Nowadays you see students leaving college and getting a job right in San Antonio. You don't see that. You did not see that back when I started. And so I attempted to get a job many times and was told, no, you don't have any experience. And he was the one that opened the door for me and gave me my first job. And I'll never forget Kimberly Crawford, who works at KBB here in San Antonio, was leaving that station. She did weather. She was leaving that station to take the job with Ernie Zuniga to start the morning show.
Oh my goodness.
And because she left that job, it opened up a spot. So Kent Harrell saw my tape and he said, there's something about you that reminds me of Kimberly Crawford. So why don't you come in and audition for weather? So I go in and I audition for weather and I just bombed.
Well, that is so, don't you think that's really hard?
It was hard. I've never worked on a green screen in my life.
I don't know how they point to the right place.
I embarrassed myself. It was horrible. I hope the tape does not
Doesn't
exist. It was so bad. But this very kind and gentle news director said, okay, that wasn't great. You're not cut out for weather, but I'll tell you what, why don't you come back tomorrow and I'm going to send you out on a story. And if your story is good enough to make air, I'll give you the job. I'll give you a reporter job. And so sure enough, the next day he sends me out, and it was around the holidays. And so the story was about Christmas tree recycling. And I go out and I do the story and I come home and I'm like glued to the TV hoping that they air my package. That's what we call a story, air my package at the 5 o'clock newscast. And then I hear the anchor, which is Melissa Vega at the time, who also works in San Antonio, toss to my package. And I just was exuberant. I was just so happy.
Oh my God.
I was so happy. And so
is that?
That's how I got my first job in TV. And I was there for 4.5 years, made amazing friendships. In one of the photos I sent you is Melissa Vega, who's to this day one of my dear, dear friends. And so just had a really wonderful time in Corpus. But there came a point where it was time to grow. I wanted more from my career and got an agent who's still my agent to this day. And she got me a job in Phoenix. Or helped me get a job in Phoenix. And so I was working for the Fox affiliate in Phoenix for a couple of years in 115-degree heat. The other picture I sent you is from my time at Fox, and I just remember being out in the field and just dripping sweat all the time because it was just so hot and unbearable. But that was a market that really made me get up to speed really quickly. It's a huge market. Breaking news. You were working with, chopper pilots and a huge staff, and you were covering national news stories all the time. And so I felt like I really grew up and did a lot of learning in that market before finally coming home to Texas. So when I was working in Phoenix, my mom, who was sick with breast cancer at the time, passed away. And I remember that being so difficult because I was out of state. The morning that she passed away, I had a flight out that morning. And I was the only one of her children not at her bedside when she passed.
Sorry.
And it's something that, I always will feel guilty for. And it told me at the time, I need to get back home. I need to get to a place where I'm in driving distance to my family, where there's proximity to my family, and I really just wanted to be back home in Texas. And so that was really the start of my, let me see, how can I phrase this? It was a
turning point.
Yeah. It was the turning point of me really wanting to come home and be back in Texas and near my family.
And that's it, isn't it? That for so many of us who have managed to stay in the industry for so long, in the end, need to be near family.
Right.
And so many times over and over again, I'll talk to someone and say, how did you get back? You used to be in Baltimore or whatever. And it's always a story of a parent or a sibling that was ill or just needed you around. And you answered that call.
And, I think when I first came to San Antonio in 2010, I did not envision a long-term career here. I thought, as it happens so much in our industry, it's a contract and then you move on. That's why you see so much turnover in the industry. So I came to San Antonio. I was actually at the time living in Austin. And I took the job in San Antonio thinking, oh, okay, well, maybe I'll spend 2 years here. We'll see what happens. I may move on. I may not. But it was never my intention at the time to permanently plant myself here. But then there's something just magical about San Antonio, isn't it?
There really is.
It really is. And so I got here, and then I bought a home here, and then I found my husband here, and then we had babies here. And so it became our new home. I often say that I was born and raised in South Texas. I was born and raised in Robstown, Texas, but I grew up in San Antonio.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I grew up, I became an adult here in San Antonio, and all the beautiful things about life I got to experience here. I found my soulmate. I became a mom. I have enjoyed professional success. I'm a member of the community and a community contributor. All of those things happened here. And so I think for that reason, I decided to stay. And this is where I want to stay. This is my home now. People ask, where are you from? Well, technically Robstown, but also San Antonio. So
that arc now leads to a longer career. So what are your goals now?
Oh, that's hard to say. I take it year by year. A lot of the goals that I had for myself, I can say that I have now achieved. I wanted stability, first of all, in my career. I wanted a work environment where I felt like I had a leadership role. I have that at KENS 5. And I wanted to achieve some accolades, some awards and things like that, which I have now. And so I feel like I've achieved what I set out to do. Is there more? Perhaps. What will be my future long-term in the industry? I don't know. As I mentioned, I also teach, and that's something that's incredibly fulfilling for me as well. I went back to school and got my master's during my hiatus from KSAT and completed that. And so have a lot of different skills that I don't think most TV anchors traditionally have. Mm-hmm. And so well, I'm open to all. I'm open to the possibility of continuing on this journey and open to the possibility of whatever else may lie ahead.
Before I let you go, we're going to do a this or that game. So let's start.
Let's go.
Meat eater or vegetarian?
Vegetarian.
Corn or flour?
Corn.
Concha or donut?
Concha.
Good girl. Breakfast tacos or puffy tacos?
Breakfast, but without egg. So like a bean breakfast taco.
Oh, bean.
Yeah.
So do you want a cheese in that or no?
No cheese.
No cheese, okay. Beaches or pools?
Oh, that's a tough one. I got to go pool. Controlled environment.
Yes,
yeah.
And also the sand.
Yeah.
You know what I like? I like to be in a pool near the beach.
Yes, there you go. There you go.
So weird.
Best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Yes.
Theme parks or parks?
Parks.
Because you got kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they don't have lines.
There's never lines. Okay. Oh, here's a good one. Tequila or mezcal?
Oh, tequila.
Me too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
With salt.
With salt. Oh, so good. I'm about to go to the Rio Grande Valley. Oh, nice. So I'm going to have some of that.
Have one for me.
I'm going to have a pool, tequila, and tacos.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on Nosotros.
Of course.
The video version of Nosotros can be found on YouTube, but you can reach us everywhere you get your podcast. My Metro column appears Wednesdays and Fridays in the Express News, and my email address is eayala@express-news.net. Thanks for joining us. See you next time on Nosotros.